My name is Jill Robbie. I'm from the School of Law, and I'm just going to talk to you about an experience that I've had in transforming Introduction to Legal Study into a blended online course. So this might be of interest to people in the room who are considering having an online element to their courses, but are not quite prepared for the kind of full MOOC experience that we've heard about in the last two presentations. So Introduction to Legal Study is a first year, first semester, general introductory course for law students. In this course, law students learn about the sources of law, court structure in Scotland, as well as acquiring some important foundational legal skills like interpreting legislation, applying the doctrine of precedent. So there's approximately 260 students on the course, and last year, before the redesign, the basic information about the legal system in Scotland was delivered via 8 hours of face-to-face lectures in orientation week. So feedback from the students, as you could probably imagine, was we were completely overwhelmed. We're not adjusted to university style teaching, and dealing with this amount of information in orientation week was overwhelming. This was even though the lectures were put online, recorded and put online. Students felt that being given all this information was just too much. So what we did as part of the BOLD project was took the information in these face-to-face lectures and put them onto online foundational knowledge modules. So basically mini-style online lectures which delivered this kind of foundational information about the legal system. And there were also, as part of the course, 3 two-hour face-to-face tutorials. So it's therefore a blended course. Changing the course to this blended format, I had a huge amount of support, and a lot of the people are in this room. So from Vicky and a lot of the support through leads from the media department, from the library department, so Kay is also in the room, and particularly with Susie Houston, who was the learning officer for the School of Law. I was also undergoing the PG CAP at the time, so I was exposed to quite a lot of literature about course design and online learning, so that was quite helpful for me. So the point of putting these online knowledge modules up there was it allowed the students to watch the videos at their own pace and re-watch them whenever they wanted to. So the modules are of different lengths, up to about 30 minutes long. Students were asked this year to watch the videos before the semester started, and they were given access to Moodle in order to do that. I was actually inspired by a TED talk that I'd watched during this redesign about let's teach for mastery, not for test scores. So the idea again that the students could re-watch these videos and take it at their own pace means that it kind of facilitates that type of learning. So it was a requirement that the students had to watch these lectures before the online lectures before week 1. A fear that I had in giving students their kind of control over their own learning is they just simply wouldn't do it. They're coming straight from school, they might have got that email but really not engaged with it. So I had one face-to-face lecture, 9 o'clock Monday morning, week 1, where I told them that I can see on Moodle who watches the lectures. Participation in the lectures then went through the roof from week 1. And so all I did was I told them that I can see it. So they've kind of got this observational eye of Big Brother, which is me, over them. But I didn't want to get into providing too much external motivation, because the switch from external to internal motivation is so important for students coming from school, right? But I did want to kind of show that there was a little gentle nudge that, you know, that this is able to be monitored, basically. An important aspect, of course, of student-centered learning is also active rather than passive learning. So after the online lectures, and you can see it down here, there's a quick quiz which allows students to test their knowledge of what they learned in the online modules. The quizzes are in multiple choice format, which is also a method of the final summative assessment. So their test, 60% of the exam is MCQs. So this allows students to practice that method of the assessment before they actually go into the exam. So as it's a blended online course, there's also 3 2-hour face-to-face tutorials in ILS, and these were also redesigned. Each tutorial kind of focuses on a particular topic which is related to the online lectures. And I redesigned these to be very interactive, a lot of varied activities, so that they were very engaging in that actual face-to-face environment. And each aspect of these tutorials also had an online library skills activity, which I developed with Kay, so that they were actually engaging in using the online tools within the situation of the classroom as well. So I then, over the course of the course, I asked the students for a lot of feedback. So I asked them for minute papers at the end of each of these tutorials, and also asked them to fill in the EVASIS forms and put in particular additional questions about what worked well about the online lectures, what could we improve about the online lectures. I also asked specifically a student who was resitting the course this year about her experience in the redesign. So what was the feedback? The feedback was that they're still feeling overwhelmed. So that is a normal part of university experience. Law has a lot of new skills that they're having to develop, that they're certainly having a lot of information, but what they did say about the online lectures is that they thought that it was a very good feature and they could control the pace of their own learning. A lot of students said that they were also really liked being able to re-watch the lectures. So again, just showing that they are hooking into this idea of learning for mastery rather than learning for test scores. One a surprising comment that came up quite a lot was that students said Moodle was difficult to negotiate and they couldn't find the online lectures. This was surprising to me because I'd redesigned Moodle for this course with Susie, our e-learning officer, to try and make it as intuitive as possible. But it kind of made me think that we assume that students will be much more tech savvy than we are. But that's not necessarily the case. They might not have ever dealt with Moodle before. So they don't know what all these buttons mean. This year I'm going to give them a bit more of a detailed tutorial, detailed overview of Moodle and where to find things in this first opening lecture that I have. There were some great suggestions in the EVASIS evaluation about how to improve the lectures, and this is where Glasgow students, I always find, are brilliant in highlighting future possibilities. So some students said we should have subtitles on the lectures to allow access to people who may have hearing difficulties, and also allow people to be able to watch them, for example, without the sound on, which I think is great. And other students said maybe they would be good to be able to download the lectures in a lower resolution, lower quality, especially for students who are off campus or they've got computers, laptops that are not very fast, or their broadband isn't very fast. And that's just increasing the accessibility of the course, and that's all coming from the students. But in general, the feedback from the lecturers was really good. It showed that that the redesign actually fulfilled its purpose, that students were saying were able to control their own learning, and they really liked the quizzes as it allowed them to practice part of the assessment for the course. So what are the kind of hardline results? A direct comparison with the results between last year and this year show an improvement in the percentage of students getting A's, a lower percentage in the students failing, and a lower percentage of the students failing the MCQ part of the exam. So mostly when students failed, they failed the MCQ part. But because of the redesign, they were practicing that as well as testing their knowledge throughout the course. So the MCQ fail rate decreased from 7.7% to 3.4%. The pass rate increased from 85% to 91%. So I think all of that is very encouraging. What I would recommend kind of going forward, and I think this is probably going to come out of this whole day, is that a redesign of this, even though it's not like making a MOOC, it needs a lot of time and space and thought, and sitting with Vicky and making the power of post-it notes come through, you know, and really thinking about why you're doing something and having the time in order to develop it. I also had 2 student interns who were very valuable to me in giving the student perspective on what was difficult about the course when they were going through it before the redesign and how we could make this better. An additional benefit that I had, because this is in a blended online course, and this is just a general feature of Moodle, but I used it really effectively for feedback. When a student failed ILS this year, they would ask me then for a kind of a feedback session. I would then ask them, okay, can you please reflect on how you could have improved your engagement with the online resources? Moodle allows you to see their online participation. So when they would come to sit with me, for example, one student would say, there were no model answers or past papers. And I said, well, there were, but you looked at them the morning of the exam at 7 o'clock in the morning. How do you think that would have helped your performance? And that was only one particular person, but it gives some sort of accountability, especially in this customer producer relationship that we're in, that it's okay, we have to increase customer satisfaction, yes, but there is accountability and there's expectations on students. So this Moodle gives a way, especially if we're putting a lot of stuff online, about saying, well, if you don't watch the online resources that we put there and you don't do the quizzes, how do you think that that will affect your performance? Most people actually, when I ask them this, they say, I just didn't do the quizzes. And I said, yeah, I know, I can see that. And they say, well, I'll just do it next time. It's like, right, great. And they tell me how they're going to improve. And they know already. So when it's coming from that perspective, when they're telling me how they could improve, then actually the feedback cycle is a little bit more friendly and a little bit more constructive than me telling them that they just answered that, 27 out of 30 MCQs wrongly. Another final thing that I learned in this course is I really engaged with students about continuous improvement. This increased the feedback responses, especially the kind of detailed responses that students gave, but it doesn't necessarily raise the satisfaction levels. I think that's because engaging students in redesigning the course means that they are engaging in an active dialogue about the future of the course. So they're not just box ticking. They're not just saying they're happy. They're saying, okay, this is great, but what about all these other things that you could be doing? And I think that that's just a further illustration of this student-centered approach that we can develop. It means that I have to try and explain that to the head of school, but I think in a way it shows that we could progress beyond just merely trying to box tick and get students to say that they're happy with absolutely everything. So thank you for your attention.